Yep. Welcome everybody to the informal Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee meeting. Just a couple of housekeeping rules because it's being streamed live on YouTube. So if you're not speaking, please keep your microphone muted just to limit the amount of feedback potential. But also, if you can keep your cameras on, because I'd love to see your beautiful faces all the way through. And it helps me to see if you're indicating whether you want to speak, because not everybody has that hands up facility or can find that on their app. So if there is a comment or a question that you have, if you raise your hand and I'll come to you in turn. And hopefully that will work really, really well. So we'll just move on from here. First of all, to welcome all our new members, because after the recent by-elections and at the start of the new municipal year, we've had some changes to our committee. So welcome to Councillor Bradley Mitchell, the councillors David O'Hara and David Owen. Welcome to the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee. And so from there on, we can move on to the declarations of interest. Councillor Stansfield, I believe you are the only member of our committee today with a declaration.
Yeah, I've got a personal declaration for item 7 on the SEND report, as I am an employee of Lotus School.
Thank you, Councillor Stansfield. So we can move on from there to the minutes of the last meeting held on the 22nd of April. I asked the council to agree the minutes of the last meeting of the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee as a true and correct record. If you can indicate by raising your hands, please. Thank you. So we'll take that as a true and accurate record. Thank you, councillors. There's item 3 of the agenda, public speaking. There's nobody public speaking this evening, although I would like to make that invitation to anybody who's watching us live stream, that it is open to any member of the public to put forward, to volunteer themselves on any item of the agenda. So please feel free to make that application in the future if there are items of interest to you. But for this meeting, nobody public speaking. Moving on to item 4 of the agenda, reappointment of co-opted members. So in a change to the reported item, first of all, I'd like to make advise that Dr. Allen wishes to step down as Roman Catholic Diocesan co-opted member. And it is a great loss because Dr. Allen, you've been really, you've made a really good contribution, I believe, in your term. So I believe you'd like to say something before you depart the committee. So I'll hand over to you.
Yes, sorry, just to say it is capacity and workload purely to do with that at the moment, as I've taken on an additional role for the DFE. And just to say that I'd recommend the role for anybody to do, because as certainly a head teacher in a Catholic school in Blackpool, to be able to see what is actually happening, you know, from a different angle, and to see the scrutiny that goes on by our councillors. It's wonderful to see how it all joins together, how we're all working together for the good of our families and our children right the way across Blackpool. So I will be sort of feeding that back to the diocese, and hoping that my Catholic colleagues, other head teachers across Blackpool, will see it as something that is definitely worth doing, and because it's enlightening, but it's also certainly, you know, the learning that goes on. But also, I just apologise really, because it's not been a long term that I've done, but I hope that there will be a successor to me to take over, because it is important to have everybody contributing in the best way possible. But thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Elaine. So just to reappoint so I'm going out to the committee to consider the reappointment of Miss Helen Sage as diocesan co-opted member to the committee for the municipal year. And it's for the committee to recommend, because it's an informal meeting, it's for the committee just to recommend reappointment under the delegated powers to the chief executive. Is that approved for all members? Thank you. So moving on to item 5, Children's Social Care Improvement Update. Jeanette Richards, I believe you are going to lead on this. So if you'd like to unmute your mic and give us an update on the Children's Social Care Improvement, including an overview of the Children and Families Partnership Board and relationships with third sector partners.
Thank you, Councillor Burdess. And I will, hopefully members of the committee have had a chance to read the paper, so I'd just like to invite questions or any comments.
Thanks, Jeanette. So, councillors, if you could raise your hands if you have a question. Councillor O'Hara, I can see you indicating there.
Yeah, when was the Children's and Families Partnership Board established? And with regards to the ambitions and priorities, are there any mechanisms in place to progress the achievements already happened?
So the board was re-established this year, and we've had 2 meetings of the board. And the priorities, inclusion, literacy and the social impact of poverty, are the key headline areas of priority for the board. The board itself is holding the members to account for the progress of those very high-line agenda items. But because they are quite significant areas, sitting underneath are different boards that meet to drive forward those areas of work. So for instance, around literacy, I know Paul's in this meeting now. There is the Blackpool Education Improvement Board. Literacy will be a key priority at that board. So there's other boards that sit underneath the Children and Families Strategic Partnership Board that feed into that strategic partnership. So all the issues, so for example, around mitigating the impact of poverty, thinking about a more effective offer of early help, sits in the Social Work Improvement Board. That sits in the Social Work Improvement Plan. That plan provides an update to Getting to Good Board. The Getting to Good Board as a mechanism to feed into the Children and Families Partnership Board. Basically, all areas of focus and the boards that sit underneath are required to provide a paper update to that board. An example of that would also be the Youth Justice Exec Board has to provide a paper to every Children and Families Partnership Board outlining areas of improvement, but areas for further development, and were held to account by the board. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. That goes into some depth in it.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Critchley and then Councillor Stansfield.
Thanks, Chair. Good evening, Jeanette. I just wanted to ask about paragraph 6.2 and working with the third sector, the voluntary sector. And you've talked about Joanne Stewart's plans to engage. Can I ask you what kind of practices you've used to engage the young volunteers, and as the uptake, have the young people been readily sort of wanting to get involved? And sorry, I had one more. I just wondered how it was going at the moment. Thanks, Jeanette.
So the establishing an early help strategy across Blackpool is really important, because we want to roll out and embed Blackpool Families Rock as a model of practice within the community, across universal services, across third sector organisations. And it's very much about the right help at the right time, in the right place, by the right people. So I'm very much focused on early help within the community as far as possible. So that's the key sort of highlights around that. What the strategy will do will agree a consistent approach to early help assessments and how early help plans are constructed and how they're reviewed. So we'll have that consistent offer across the town. So that's very much the thinking. This strategy was presented as a draft to the Children and Families Partnership Board. It was broadly agreed as a strategy. There's a period of consultation with the partnership, so we're going to ask for their feedback. The other area of consultation and thinking about our model of practice and our absolute priority around co-production and involving both parents, carers and young people in everything that we do. The strategy is being taken to the Blackpool Families Rock Implementation Group for their consideration, and our Just Us group will also be reviewing the strategy. And it's hoped that we can seek all that consultation in the next month or so, because the aspiration is that we launch the strategy in September and roll out that offer of early help in September. And that the offer of early help is also linked to the acknowledgement that many of our parents in Blackpool are struggling with their parenting in the context of adversity. And this is seeking to try and mitigate and support at the earliest opportunity some of those inequalities, in the hope that we will prevent escalation of need through to statutory social care, because there's a whole evidence framework around early help, and community-based early help is much more effective than social care intervention further down the line. I hope that answers your question.
Councillor Critchley, you're on mute.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I understand that, Jeanette. I understand how you want it roll out, but where do the volunteers fit in then? Where do you get the volunteers from? How are they coming into the service then to take it out into the community?
So in terms of we're principally looking at engaging the third sector. So as part of the launch of the strategy and that activity in September, as well as using the Children and Families Partnership Board, we will be contacting all the third sector organisations and asking them to engage with that work. We also will be using the hubs. We've got third sector organisations operating from the hubs and publicising the strategy from the hubs, and just really sowing the seeds across the community. So one of the things that has just been recently piloted is early help workers based in Highfield and Unity School, demonstrating that the broader benefits around early help in terms of educational achievements for young people, for example.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Can I just ask if the barriers, what barriers you faced and maybe how you've overcome the barriers?
So I think, the programme of change within children's has been, significant. I think it's fair to say that we really need to progress with our early help strategy. But the best way to seek engagement is to demonstrate that it's successful. And we've seen that in Highfield and Unity. We've seen that in feedback from children and families around that early help offer. What we're hoping to do is use the council's resources to get alongside universal services, the third sector, to walk in step with them and support them in delivering the offer.
Okay, thanks, Jeanette. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jeanette. Councillor Stansfield, you next.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's again under 622. I've got two questions, one under collaboration of work and one under, what's the other section, youth engagement. The collaboration of work, during our school day at work, we used a lot of resilience things, but you've got here that you use concept of resilient therapy. Can you explain a little bit more of what you mean by resilient therapy and why it's beneficial to use it?
So the resilient therapy was kind of a methodology that was adopted by Head Start, and it's something about the 5 ways of being and the 5 necessary component parts to promote resilience. And I can't actually remember the details of that, but it was in arriving at this methodology for Head Start, there was significant research undertaken to devise an appropriate solution to promote resilience. I'll have to come back to you and maybe come back to you and give you the absolute specific details around that, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I know it's a large area and it's one that it's a bit difficult when you put someone on the spot to actually fill it all in. So yeah, a little bit more information, follow-up would be great. The other question is under youth engagement, and you've provided details of several schemes here. That very interesting events. Are they well attended? Could you tell us? And how have they managed to go ahead with the COVID restrictions? Has that made an impact on them, or have they gone as well as we would have expected?
Sadly, like many of our direct contact with young people has absolutely been impacted by COVID. And it's part of Head Start's thinking around that COVID recovery plan to re-establish some of this youth engagement work, particularly as we're getting into the summer holidays and having that offer to our young people in Blackpool.
Thank you very much, Jeanette.
Thank you, Councillor Stansfield.
Just wonder if there's anybody else on the... Thank you, Councillor Coleman. If you have a question, do you want to go next?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And can I just welcome the young people as well that are attending today. It's good to see them attending. The thing I've got is 621, the Family Hubs Early Help. Now, you've got a list of organisations there. Have you got the Scouts and Brownies and places like that have got involved? And also the Early Help strategy, have we not had this before? I can recollect this about 2 years ago that we started something like this, and I just wondered if it was in conjunction with that, or is this something totally different? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Coleman, in relation to the strategy, this is a much broader, far-reaching strategy, which is seeking to engage third sector organisations and to arrive at a point where, as I said, we've got a consistent approach in the way that we undertake assessments of early help and plans. So I think it's much more detailed, but importantly, it's built around the values and principles of Blackpool Families Rock. So it will be different. I think we, think as I mentioned before, there's a swelling evidence base about the importance of early help. So I think it's been a deliberate sort of strategic intention within Children's to bring early help to the focus of our plans and grow and develop that early help offer in a way that we've not undertaken previously. And in relation to early help services, which are really, really important around brownies, cubs, etc., I don't think any of those groups are operating from the hubs. They're operating from other community centres. But if we're thinking about packages of early help support for children and young people, their engagement with those community-based resources, particularly for challenging families that are challenged with issues of poverty, are really, really important.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? Thank you, Jeanette, for presenting there. So do members wish to request any additional information in relation to this item? I think there was some question about an early years. Councillor Critchley.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I didn't know whether to do it later on, but if I can come in at this point, that'd be absolutely grand. Jeanette, I've been hearing stories about the brain story certificate that's being rolled out amongst the professionals, and I think, is it going into nursery places as well? I just wondered how, because we talked about it at one meeting, but then we've not really heard anything since. I just wondered how it was going as it rolled out well, and if many professionals come on board and wanted to do the course, because I have been looking into the course and it looks pretty good. And I think it's something, I don't know about the other councillors, but I think it's something that we would like to maybe touch on, or even go through if you have a PowerPoint or something about it. I think it's something we'd like to know more about.
Thank you, Councillor Critchley. I don't know if Paul wants to comment on this, because this is around early years services, or whether we bring something back to another committee meeting. I think Paul is in the meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Jeanette. Sorry, Chair. Yeah, is it okay if I just make a comment at the moment? Okay. So yeah, it's through Better Start. The secondary schools in particular have taken advantage of the brain training, if you want to call it that, in relation to the effects of trauma on a child's development and their lived experience. You might have heard it related to in terms of ACEs. So it's very similar. And actually, yes, we can ensure that there is availability to partake in that training for anybody who wishes to do so. It can be arranged through the Better Start team, and equally can be arranged through the school practitioner who's currently seconded to that team in conjunction with a charity called Right to Succeed. So I think the easiest way to do it is to contact myself directly, and I can make sure that the correct information is cascaded down to the people who require it, if that's okay, Chair.
So if I'm right, I'm thinking that it's not rolled out to nurseries, because the information I was getting was some of the nursery practitioners doing it in the nurseries.
Yeah, apologies, Councillor. Yeah, it is available through Better Start to any practitioner who wishes to partake in that training. So if they're working directly with a nursery setting in relation to the effects of trauma on development and so on, then they can take part in that training. It's actually available through online, so it's an online training course.
Yeah. But does everybody know about it? They know it's there, sort of thing. I just wondered what the uptake had been, you see, that was all. It was just, how it had rolled out across the borough. That was all I was.
Yeah, so I can bring some of those statistics back for you, or email some statistics across for your council if that's appropriate.
Yes, Paul, I think we like that.
Councillor Bades, so the question around the resilient therapy, should I email something?
Yeah, if you
that?
could, a summary for us.
No
It was a question I would have asked as myself to get a bit more information about how that works out, what the concept of it is, and the benefits. So thanks for that offer. We'll get that email from you. So moving on. Oh, sorry, Councillor Stansfield, you've got further. I don't know how I missed that. Councillor
Right.
Stansfield, I apologise.
You're all right, Chair. It's just one thing. The brain game training, is that a free service by Better Start, or is there a cost to it, or is it just one that just a register and it's online provided by them? Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Stansfield, my understanding is that it is as described by yourself there, so it is free and online through Better Start. So the intention with this programme was to get as many people as possible worldwide to engage in this training. So I'll make sure that we get that and equally get all the appropriate information across to you.
I am playing a little bit of an advocate, really, because we actually did it at Lotus School, but I don't know the details of costs or anything. We did it in a face-to-face training.
Yeah, that also can be facilitated in that way. So I think you're quite right you're absolutely right to champion it. And actually, the schools and the organisations that have used it have been very complimentary about it. And actually, it's changed the way that their staff members think about the way that they approach children and the behaviours that they present with in the setting. So absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement there. It's right. So I would also champion that. But I think I'd like to have a clear picture of who's engaged with it across the borough, the schools, like you say, if they've taken that up, and what the impact has been. So, you know, it should be widely promoted. I think we should be aiming for, you know, blanket coverage. All staff have done it, all staff know what it is, and it informs practice. So yeah, I'd like more information on that myself. An email would be good. Keep it simple. That's okay. So moving on from there, thank you very much for your input. We'll move on to the next item, which is young inspectors, and we have some of our children who are brave enough and confident enough to take this and run with it, and it's an incredible thing that you're doing, and we'll be kind. Take your time, you're in control, and we're all ears. So Kirsty, if you want to lead them in this, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bades. So it's down to me to get the slide to work. So this could be the technical bit that all goes wrong, and then the young people. We've got Tia. Do you want to say hello, Tia? And Charlotte, do you want to come off mute as well? Say hi.
Hi.
Okay, right. Let's give this a whirl and see if it will work. Can you see the screen is the question. Oh, I've gotten a nod, that's good. So I'll start our little slideshow, and then I'll hand over to Tia and Charlotte. So I'll have to, girls, can you both see that?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so Charlotte, you're off first, and then we'll swap over to Tia. Yeah, is that okay? And then I'll just bob in when it's my bit.
Yeah.
Thank you, councillors.
Okay, so let's start with why did we start our scheme? So the Young Inspectors scheme is started because being happy, feeling safe and cared for in a home where we live is really important for us all, but even more for young people like me who don't live with our families. For many years, this is a topic that has been central to a lot of the discussions and consultations with all of us, and we really wanted to make sure that this happened. Blackpool is involved in a nationally funded pilot scheme around all aspects of supported accommodation, and this has brought resources to kickstart our scheme as some of the outcomes are the same.
What is a young inspector? A young inspector is a volunteer aged 16 plus who's experienced living in supported accommodation or is in care. Young inspectors support the quality monitoring of semi-independent accommodation by visiting the homes where the young people live. We speak to the young people living there and assess how safe and well cared for the young people are. We get a feel for how welcoming and homely the homes are, and we can use our own experiences to help us assess the quality of the support that is being offered.
How do young people get involved and how are they trained? Kirsty and Alicia are the participation team, are always looking on the lookout for future young inspectors and recruitment, as they are involved in lots of various groups and forums with our young people. At the moment, recruitment is targeted, but as the programme gets more well known, we hope young people will volunteer and be excited to get involved. As young inspectors, we have received training in consultation skills, questioning skills, confidentiality and basic safeguarding. The quality monitoring officers in the commissioning team are also supporting us by providing an insight into the processes involved in their jobs.
So what's good about being a young inspector? It improves our confidence and self-esteem. We are learning new skills around communication, problem solving, information gathering and presentations like this. We make a positive difference for young people in semi-independent accommodations. Training and development programme. We're rewarded for the work in form of vouchers. It's also classed as work experience, so it can count towards my hours at college, and it's helpful to go on CVs for job finding and education opportunities. It also gives us a good insight into different work settings around potential future jobs.
So our activity today, obviously we're in our very early stages. So we've got 4 young inspectors currently alive, so with Tia and Charlotte being 2 of them. We've got about 5 young people waiting to get started. We've been the live inspectors have inspected, done 4 inspections so far, and 2 virtual inspections, because obviously we've only just started going back to face, which is really good, because initially we had to start with virtual inspections, but the girls will tell you a little bit more about that in a second. And we've also undertaken 3 workshops involving lots of different young people living in different settings around Blackpool, to get their views about what makes a really good semi-independent home and what they'd like to see in our newly written quality standards. So we've done that piece of work, and that hopefully will be pulled together shortly to go back out to young people to make sure they've got them right, and then we can use them to inspect our homes going forward. So how's it going so far? So I'm just going to stop sharing the screen for 2 seconds, and then we can come back so I can see, and then we've got the girls are going to tell you a little bit about what they've been up to. So 2 secs, because I've got another sheet that we're using. So girls, what have you done? Why did you want to be a young inspector, Tia?
I was asked to become a young inspector as they explained about wait, you've asked what?
Have you got the right bit?
Which page are we on?
So you're on our separate bit, yeah, where the questions and answers are.
Yeah,
so,
why do you like being a young inspector?
Yeah. So do you want to go first, Tia? Sorry, or Charlotte, doesn't matter.
So I was asked to become a young inspector as it explained about the scheme, and I thought it was a brilliant idea and a way I could make a difference to make things better for young people like me. I think it's really important that they have a good place to live so that they are helped and prepared for the future and have good foundations to build on. My home taught me many things: life skills, cooking actual meals, not just snacks, supported me through college and work. These are the things I look for when I'm inspecting the other homes. I think the staff who work there are the most important thing to get right. They need to be approachable and need to be there to support young people no matter what it is.
Fab, thanks, Tia. What about you, Charlotte? Why did you want to become a young inspector?
So I wanted to be involved in the Young Inspectors because I have the aspiration for making sure young people lived in good homes where they are happy and well supported. I've lived in a semi-independent place, which gave me a good understanding of what helps and what is important to having a home, which includes the support to move on.
Fab, thanks. So Tia, what have you done so far?
So I've attempted one online visit, but the young person didn't want to speak to me virtually. I have now completed 2 face-to-face inspections. These went really well. They were happy to speak to me and appeared very relaxed and open to my questions. The young people were settled and happy, and I didn't have to raise any concerns. I enjoyed doing the visits and was pleased to see that our young people were happy and felt supported where they were living. They showed me their living space, which was really nice, and I'm looking forward to doing my next inspections.
Thank you, Tia. Charlotte?
My first inspection was online as well, which made it difficult to start with. The young people weren't really open to speaking to me. But the next visits were face-to-face, which is what I prefer. I was supported to do these visits, which was to ensure that everything went well and I felt confident. The first face-to-face inspection was really relaxed. We were able to have a brew together and the young people actually opened up at this point. My second face-to-face visit was more challenging as the young people I spoke to was unhappy. It was shown that there were areas of improvement that needed to be made, but it was reassuring as the staff members at the accommodation were able to identify the issues raised. I will be going back to check that these changes they've said they would be making are made though.
Brilliant, thank you. So Charlotte, what we found out about the whole thing so far, what do you think of it? You know, how's it been going, and what do you found from going around the different homes?
So we started recognising that the different homes offer different levels of support. These homes really need to match the support they offer to the individual needs of the young people they're caring for. We hope that when our quality standards are being used to inspect, it will help to raise the standards of support and care offered and more consistency. We both are really excited to be in Young Inspectors for Blackpool and help launch the new scheme. We really want to make sure young people live in really good homes and get the right support that they need to live independently and do it successfully. We want to be really good role models to all young people and be able to show them that it's possible to do well in life and be a young person growing up in care does not prevent you from being able to do so on and achieve anything that you want.
Thanks, girls. So I'll just share the screen again and just let you know what happens, what we're going to do, we're hoping to do next. 2 seconds. So these are our future plans. We've got big plans for our Young Inspector scheme. We really want it to be successful and grow. So in the future, we would like to make one of our young inspectors a team leader, and they will help to run the programme themselves, help us recruit and train and teach other children, young people, how it works. With the National Children's Commissioning Conference happening later in the year, and we've been asked to present there, so our young inspectors will be going out to tell nationally what we're up to in Blackpool, which is very exciting. We hope that our young inspector scheme, once we've got the semi-independent things working well, that we can then spread the inspectors to go and look at all the residential children's homes and other services within our children's services. We are obviously working jointly with commissioning, so we want to embed the programme and the quality monitoring process of all our accommodation-based services for our young people, regardless of where they live. Young inspectors will be involved in the future for actually tendering the accommodation for our children. So when new providers come forward to offer their services to our children in providing accommodation, our young inspectors will be involved in saying whether they're good enough or not. We're going to formalise the training programme so that it's easily accessible by new members. So as I said before, we've got 5 new members waiting to get started, which they obviously need to go through the training first. So that's going to be a combination of online training and face-to-face, so our young people get an opportunity to ask questions and find out a bit more about the scheme. We're obviously going to be launching our new quality standards, and those standards will be then used to measure against when our young inspectors go out to inspect the homes. These are their standards written by them, so hopefully that will, be brilliant once they're up and running. We're obviously going to continue to recruit our young inspectors and promote the scheme far and wide, and hopefully move forward. We'll try and look at financially rewarding our inspectors for their time and expertise by becoming casual employees for the council. So there's a lot to do still, but we're really excited about the scheme and we're happy to take any questions. I'll stop sharing.
That's great. Thanks, Kirsty. And thanks, Charlotte and Tia. That was really thorough, and you presented that information really, really well. I got a really good sense of your growing in confidence and your fully understanding what this is about. So really well done, both of you. Councillor Coleman, you had your hand raised there. And Councillor Stansfield to follow.
Thank you, Chair. Well done, Kirsty, yet again, and a better, idea of how it works. Can I just ask, if there's a home that isn't up to standards, or they haven't put what they're meant to put in place, is the council going to stop using that firm, or are they going to try and work with them and try and get it better for them? Because I know there's a lot of independent companies that are at the moment, they're not very good, and if they're not going to implement things, then should we use other companies that will?
So yes and no, I guess, is the answer to that question. Obviously, all the homes that we use for our children go through a commissioning process and part of the Northwest Forum. So they have all been approved to be good enough for our young people. So going forward, if the young people find, alongside the young inspectors, our commissioning service are already going out to do their quality monitoring not at the same time, but they will inspect the home at this, over the young people might go out on a Tuesday, but during that week the commissioning service also go in to do the check, speak to the staff and make sure that all the regulations and paperwork are correct and they're following procedures. So it's a 2-tier inspection. Obviously the young people, they speak to the young people that live there and they get a sense of the home, but there's also another process behind that the commissioning team carry out. So yes, we could stop using that home if they didn't meet our criteria, absolutely, but also we do want to work with our providers to improve standards if we're concerned. So if it's low level things that can be easily fixed, and a young person's unhappy about the support they're receiving, we might be able to fix that quite easily. If it's more widespread and a bit more challenging, then the commissioning service will go in and talk to the providers themselves and then make that judgment call.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Stansfield. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Stansfield.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think Councillor Coleman's basically beaten me to it. But one thing I would like to say is congratulations to Charlotte and Tia for an excellent presentation. It seems like they really have got hold of what is necessary for the role that they're taking on. And I wish them all the best. And Kirsty as well, with all the best with the future of this.
It's not me, it's them. But thank you. Yeah, we do hope that we have got young people really excited about the project, and they are in the best. So the girls, they've got their experience, they've lived in these homes, they know what really works for them. So, and that we're taking their expertise and using it to support us in finding the best quality, good standard of homes for our children that can, you know, help them get the skills they'll need to live independently successfully in the future. So it's a very exciting project.
Yeah, there's nothing more daunting than actually going into, for want of a better expression, criticise someone who's not up to standards. And the one thing I was going to ask is, have you had any experience where you have put these forward and these improvements have been made? Because I like to think that you are being listened to as much as the commissioning officers. I really would like to think that you're a valuable asset to the team.
Charlotte, do you want to answer that? Because you have experienced that, haven't you?
Yeah. So the one place that had issues, I think before we even walked through the door, the person who was running the place knew that these issues were there, and she was explaining that these issues were going to be improved and that it needed to be sorted now, not next week, not in a month. It needs to be done now. And I think I put my foot down. I said, I really want to go back and go make sure these changes are happening, which obviously I haven't been to yet, which I really want to go see, but obviously nothing's going to happen in the space of a month, especially with COVID. So I'm hoping that they are going to make the changes, which I have no idea yet. So, but yeah, I've been in that situation and I'm hoping it's going to change.
Yeah, so as a result of Charlotte's visit, the commissioning officer who was with her during the visit, obviously they're now monitoring that home. Then the reason why it's been a change of owner of the semi-independent. So there was issues with the previous owners. They've took over and now they're improving services. So that's why they were pretty much on the ball and were aware of some of the issues that young people were saying about it. So it's been closely monitored and some of those things have already been addressed, I believe. So, but Charlotte will go back on the next inspection. So if they've not had a brilliant inspection, then there's a shorter time scale and they'll re-inspect. And then obviously, but with the standards, we're hoping to sort of grade our home. So there'll be gold standard, silver standard, bronze standard. We're not quite sorted it out yet, but that's what we're hoping. So obviously we want our providers to all want to be gold standards providers and provide that gold standard of care for our children. So we're hoping it's going to be like a bit of an incentive as well, that they'll all work really, really hard to get our young inspectors gold seal of approval, really. So that's what we want for all our children.
Thanks, Kirsty. I've just got one question and then I'll go on to you, Elaine. Kirsty, you were talking about the skills and I was interested about the training, and that this is a question to our young people, our young inspectors. Are there any areas you would like or you think you need more training in?
Tia, do you want to answer that? Charlotte?
No, I don't think so. Like, before we even started it, we've had all the training, so we already knew what we were to prepare for. So personally for me, I think that I know everything I need to know to be able to do it.
At the moment, they're being supported on their visits. They're not going by themselves. So myself or Alicia, participation officer, or Tracy Shand, who's the commissioning officer, we are obviously visiting with them until young people, they feel they've got the confidence enough to be able to do it. I mean, if they don't want to do it by themselves, we're happy to still support them. And they do all the talking, which is hard for me, obviously, but I'll let them do the talking, and then I just hold the hand if they need it. But you know, the two, you know, Charlotte and Tia have both been brilliant, and you know, young people have really engaged well with them, which has been lovely to see. Them having those conversations in a very open and honest way. So, but the support's there if they need it. But we do need to basically, we've got young people waiting, but we need to get the training, you know, formalised so it's quick to get them through rather than you know, having to wait a while for it. We'll get a cohort of children waiting, so it's good.
I was more thinking in the sense of continuing professional development. It's like you've started this, it's a really strong start. We're bringing new people in underneath you, so where, you know, how can we build on the training you've already got? How can we build on the expertise? How can we build on your confidence? So, you know, it might be something that you become more aware of the more experience you get. Like, actually, I think I'd like to learn a bit more about this, and maybe to consider that kind of training program that we know so that they know what to expect in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, a year, that they're going to build on the training and become better, even better at what they're doing.
And I think
yeah,
we will look at, we're already looking at, you know, our mandatory training, online training for council staff, and what would be appropriate for our young inspectors to tap into. So that's what we're looking at now in terms of putting a training package around them. And yeah, we'll continue to develop that as we get. I mean, obviously we want to skill our young people as much as possible. So, you know, if it's linking in with the colleges, you know, going forward, maybe you know, it could turn into an MVQ qualification, that sort of thing. So that's definitely something that we can map and look as we move forward. Obviously it's new to us as well as the young inspectors. So but absolutely, yeah, you're right. It's about, you know, skilling them up. And I think the girls have already recognised, both girls are at college and university now, so they're already making the links themselves, what's working for their college courses, and what, you know, what we can provide them as their corporate parents, if you like, to give them that work experience, opportunity and skills.
It's very, very promising. I think it's good for everybody. You're good for us, and we could, you know, we have a responsibility to help you get better. So that's what I was thinking of. Dr. Allen?
Oh yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, yeah, absolutely brilliant, Charlotte here. I love it. Being head teacher, I love seeing young people doing things for themselves and having a voice. Absolutely love it. And I just, you've answered. I did have a question in mind, but you've answered it in your presentation, which was to do with how you're strengthening your skills, etc. And I think the quality standards really sort of is amazing to think that you're actually going to be writing those standards to measure you know, these homes against. And I just wanted to ask, are there other authorities that are doing this that you could cross-reference these standards with? Because it'd be wonderful to think that you could be looking at another, like you know, Lancashire or another authority, if they are doing something similar, and then you could actually start to work between authorities on getting sort of national standards. Is there any? I mean, I'm maybe just moving you too fast here, but I do think it's.
Oh no, we're going global. Don't worry, it's fine. We're all.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, if you've actually thought of this and you're the first, and you need to be driving it, because it's just brilliant.
Yeah, well, I think we might be the first, not the first young inspector. There are other young inspector schemes out there. Other local authorities do have young inspectors inspecting their services, but I do think we might be the first that's doing it. In terms of our accommodation, improving driving standards for our accommodation for young people. So, but I've been told that, but I don't know if that's true. But we'll take it anyway. So yeah, we're trailblazers in Blackpool. That's what we are.
Well, when people start to copy you, then you can take the lead, and you can be sharing your standards, can't you? So that'd be. I can see Charlotte nodding there.
Well, I think we're
take the lead, Charlotte. Definitely, and Tia.
Yeah. So I think we're going to the national commissioning conference, so there we'll get a gauge then, I think, of who else is doing what, and how we can all link together, and like you say, come up with some, you know, to raise staff standards nationally. Yeah, would be very exciting.
Councillor Callow?
Yes, thank you, Paula. I just want to say how important it is to see this through young eyes. It's all right for us adults who, and at times we do think this, that we know best, and we don't really. So this is very, very important, and I do hope that it goes from strength to strength. And when we've got young people like Charlotte and Tia and developing their skills, I mean, the world's the oyster for them. When I heard them speak, I thought perhaps these are two future councillors. Mm-hmm. In fact, they presented far better than most councillors, including myself, you know, have done at times. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. And I really did enjoy the report. Are there any plans for perhaps them to report back in a few months' time and let us know about the progress? Because it is just so interesting, and it is something that is much needed, going on these inspections. And if the word gets out that the people who are operating homes that perhaps don't come up to the required standard are going to be, you know, dealt with, then I think that will be half the battle. But well done, girls. And it's if I can be a little bit sexist, Nice to see 2 young women doing it. You're a credit. Well done.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you to say. And well, I don't know, Tia and Charlotte, would you be happy to come back and update the councillors on our progress? We've got 22 inspections to do over the next few weeks, so they are going to be busy.
Definitely. I'd definitely love to come back and update you all.
That would be brilliant. And in fact, if there are no further questions, Councillor Critchley, did you have a question? I thought you were raising your hand.
Yeah,
Councillor?
no, it's all right.
No.
It was answered the last time,
Okay.
so absolutely fine. About
Brilliant.
trailblazers, and yes, we are.
We are definitely, and with Charlotte and Tia at the helm, definitely. Okay, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask how many semi-independent places there are, and are you going to go to? Because I know we've got Blackpool children in other parts of the county. Do you go into them and ask them, or is it just Blackpool based?
At the moment, it is Blackpool based. That we are those discussions are being had about what we do about children that are living outside of the area. So yeah, we are. It is a pilot scheme at the moment. We're just obviously just starting, finding our feet, working our way through. So we've got 22 outstanding, and we've done 4, so there's about 26, 27. Some are solo homes that young people live by themselves with support, and others are group living homes. So there's different types of semi-independent, and then some young people are living in their own flats with floating support. So that's included in that number as well. So they're a bit more tricky because we're going into young people's own homes, so there's a bit of permission around that, and some conversations with the young people themselves if they're happy for our young inspectors to go and visit them in their own flat they've got their own tenancy for. So those conversations are we're just trying to work it all out as we go. So we're starting with the easier ones, which is the group living homes, and then moving on to the others. But yeah, we do need to think about our children who live out of the area.
Thanks, Kirsty. So
thank you.
And thanks, Councillor Coleman. So I'd like to move on to the resolution, which is that we'd like as a committee a progress report, a regular progress reports on the work of the young inspectors, and also looking at the actions that are implemented because of their recommendations. So just to see that they're being listened to, and that that their opinions are being actioned. So that would be really good if we could get those regular reports back. I don't know, Kirsty, what you feel would be an appropriate frequency for these?
I don't know, Jeanette, what do you think? I mean, we've got we're hoping to get the standards up and running by September and launch them. So obviously you probably would want to see those. And then the inspection reports will change then because we're using the standards. So I don't know, what Jeanette, what do you think is reasonable?
I think towards the end of the year. Is that okay?
Yes.
So I'm not sure when that would fall.
Elaine, what do you? I'll just check.
Next meeting's October. Would that be too soon? Would it be the meeting after?
The meeting after, I think, if that's agreeable.
I'll add it to the work programme for that meeting.
Okay.
Thank you all round for that. Really in depth. That it was so interesting and brilliant, as we've said over and over, to see our young people engaged in that area of the service. So well done, keep it up, and I'm very, very proud of you, and you should be proud of yourselves for that report. It was marvellous. And Kirsty, thank you for leading that. So we can move on from there.
Sorry, just let they need to leave. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. You can leave the meeting from now. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you
very
much.
I haven't kept you too long.
Thanks,
Thank
girls.
you. Good night, girl. So moving on, it's a hard act to follow there. So SEND provision, Paul and Phil to present here. So we'd just like you to provide an overview of the SEND provision in Blackpool.
Thank you, Chair. So there was a request from Scrutiny to bring back some detailed overview of the provision which was planned at the Oracle building. Now, I'm sure everybody knows, but the Oracle is in front of South Shore Academy. It's a big orange building. So this is part of Blackpool's desire to provide an even stronger SEND system than we have now. So you'll be aware that we have some excellent special schools in Blackpool, and actually they are very much oversubscribed, if you want to use that phrase. So, you know, Park is outstanding, High Furlong is outstanding, Woodlands is good, and then our new Lotus School is filling up quite quickly, and you know, it's an absolutely brilliant provision in Blackpool. So Blackpool is very much stretched in terms of special school places. So you'll be aware that we have to commission some places out of borough for Blackpool children to attend schools outside of Blackpool. Now, our intention in the future is to provide a Blackpool special school place in Blackpool for all children who require it. What we found, though, because of the effects of the pandemic, is that some of the capacity issues have been accelerated slightly by the fact that children have been staying in the system for longer, and equally through the good work of the SEND team in identifying children earlier, there is a capacity issue in Blackpool. So what we are trying to do is identify a suitable place for some short-term, temporary provision in Blackpool in SEND. And one of the buildings which we have available to us, as you know, is the Oracle. It's very difficult, actually, and anybody who knows the expansion at Park School and Woodland School and High Furlong know that they are relatively constrained sites. So therefore, other than building upwards, we have really taken up all the available land except for the work which we're going to be doing at High Furlong School over the summer. So we've looked for appropriate places in which to provide some additional special school places, and the Oracle is one. We do know that it's not entirely suitable at the moment, hence why we're proposing, as is outlined in the paper, to invest some money into that building to change slightly some of the internal layout and to deal with one external issue around the fence line. What the Oracle to us seems a perfect solution in many respects. There are a number of hoops we need to jump through in relation to the Department for Education, because if the places were utilised by Park students, Park School is an academy, and therefore any significant change to their provision has to go through the Regional Schools Commissioner, which is therefore a legal change. So actually it's not an immediate offer to Blackpool children. At the moment it is still in the proposal stages. So I'm assuming councillors will have read the paper and will know a lot about special school provision in Blackpool anyway, because of the highlights and you know, the long-term nature of SEND in Blackpool. So I think if we open it up to questions and assurances, please, to councillors, Chair, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Councillors, any questions? Councillor O'Hara?
Yeah, it's in relation to normal school, you know, the normal secondary schools that have special educational needs. How much will this affect them? Will there be any coordination to keep an eye to see that they're keeping up to their special educational needs, things that they should be doing? I know we've got a problem. We've got such excellent schools for special schools, but there are also pupils in normal state schools, which are now academies, and some of the heads might not be quite as keen to deal with special educational needs as they should be.
Yeah, thank you, councillor. So your point taken around all schools stepping up to mark around SEND, absolutely, there is a real commitment from head teachers across Blackpool to be inclusive in their provision for all children. One of the difficulties is that lots of these children and young people have very specific needs, which are very difficult to provide for occasionally, sometimes, in a mainstream setting, which is why we have our specialist setting. So it's almost 2 points. This is very much for those children who require a specialist setting, but your point is very well made about, are all schools stepping up and actually taking upon their responsibility in relation to SEND? So that is a significant part of our SEND strategy, and we've consulted with secondary academy CEOs and secondary head teachers. We'll be consulted with again this week about how they see they will take their responsibility forwards in making sure that there are available places in the secondary phase for all children whose parents wish them to attend a mainstream secondary school. So absolutely top of our list of priorities, and we are constantly in dialogue with those head teachers and those boards about what their responsibilities are in relation to inclusion, and they do take it extremely seriously.
Thank you for that. So most of the heads are keen and coordinating and cooperating with you along the way.
Absolutely, yeah. The Education Improvement Board and the partnership around that now is the strongest it's been for a very good length of time, and everybody is working collaboratively on this endeavour, so definitely.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. I was wondering, further to this question that Councillor O'Hara has about the statutory duty, and you're saying also that with some of the young people that with complex needs, that there's a very specialist provision. I wonder if there's like a minimum, in order to be inclusive, is there like a minimum standard that is set within all schools, or are they kind of reactive so that it depends on who presents themselves that year, and then they have to try and somehow reshape their provision in order to meet the needs? I don't know, would that make it easier if there was this like a minimum standard and for all schools to have or to offer?
Yeah, so thank you, Chair. There is absolutely an expectation within a comprehensive school system that children will be educated in the school that they choose or their parents choose for them. So in terms of the expectation around teachers, as you all know, there is a real expectation that teachers are sufficiently skilled to meet the needs of the children who come to their school. So actually, the SEND team do a lot of work with teachers about upskilling teachers to be able to deal with the needs and cater for the needs of every child who is in front of them in the classroom. And actually, your point about having to flex the provision every single year and often on a terminal basis is a really good point, because even in schools which are selective, in a selective school system, you still have to differentiate for children, and you still have to provide different ways of teaching and engaging all children in that class. So absolutely, schools need to flex their provision regularly for children with education, health and care plans, and for children who don't have education, health and care plans. But you're right, what is our minimum standard for an inclusive school in Blackpool? And really what we're working towards in that inclusion strategy in the Education Improvement Board's 2020-30 vision is understanding what an inclusive school really does look like. Now, all our schools have made significant strides on expanding their provision, both in terms of alternative provision, different curriculum pathways, different staffing models. And actually, I think they're closer than ever to fully understanding what it means to be a Blackpool school for all Blackpool children in this current context and in the changing context. And I actually think they do a brilliant job at it. So absolutely. But would we want to educate all children in Blackpool? Absolutely. Is it possible to educate all children in Blackpool currently? No, it's not. So we need to make sure that we flex our offer to be able to do that. And the Oracle is one of the starting points of that longer SEND vision about how we best cater for those children in Blackpool, in specialist settings if necessary. But our ambition is within mainstream settings for the vast majority of children.
Thanks, Paul. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Coleman and Councillor Stansfield to follow.
Thank you, Chair. Paul, it says in there that about some of the park students are going up to the Oracle. How many students are going up? And also, is it the Westbury Sixth Form Centre that you'll be using? Because I know Park School use that as a sixth form, And I know the children in there were fantastic, and they wanted to go into that building. Now, are you going to make them them buildings part of the school?
So I'll bring Phil in a moment, but in terms of the concrete plans, Councillor Coleman, for who will go to the Oracle, and that's not yet determined, that's down to the head teacher at Park Community Academy to decide who would be best placed in that particular provision. But yeah, in terms of the current use of Westbury Lodge, Phil Thompson, if Phil could come in and talk to Councillor Coleman, please, about the current use of that building, please, Phil.
Yes, thanks, Paul. The current plan is there is 46 children in Park Sixth Form at Westbury Lodge, and in discussions with the trust and the head teacher at Park, they are currently considering, it's not agreed yet, but they are considering moving the children that are in the sixth form provision, the 40 odd children, to the Oracle building, and then moving their key stage 4, so their sort of year 10, year 11 children, into Westbury Lodge to free up some space on the main park site. That will give them classroom space and will allow us to expand the number of children attending Park. And what we've agreed is that the type of children that they will start taking further down the school, particularly reception, key stage 1, will be more complex needs of children. So we're trying to change the demographic and cohort of children attending Park so that they take some more complex needs of children, because High Furlong is full and Woodlands is full, and the issue we've got, as Paul alluded to, we are struggling for land space to expand or build for those schools to expand into.
Thank you, Chair. But is the school ready to take complex children, or does that need changing as well?
Yeah, so we've had lots of long discussions with them, and we're starting to filter children in slowly. We've agreed from September that there will be 4 children starting, to allow the school to actually upskill and train some of their staff, because not all of their staff will be familiar with teaching more complex needs children. So we've got a programme agreed where certainly by September 22, they will be in a position to all take more complex children. So there's a training programme going in place for those staff, so that we start in September. They'll have nearly a year's lead time to be ready and be prepared.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Stansfield.
Thank you very much, Chair. You referred to we're going to bridge the gap temporarily with the Oracle. We know we've got the increase over the next 2 years at Lotus. I'm going to ask you the how long's a piece of string question. We've just gone through 2 years with the pandemic, which has obviously caused mental health issues, etc., throughout families and children alike. Do you think that the provision that this is going to put in place is going to bridge that gap, or are we still going to be looking for more placements at the end of this, or will this? Do you think it'll settle it, and we will then have enough for our Blackpool students of whatever level of SEND is required?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stansfield. So it is a difficult question to answer, because Blackpool's such a transient town, and therefore we don't know from year to year who will be in the general area and what their needs will be. The complexity in Blackpool is increasing, and the numbers of children with education, health and care plans is increasing, but equally the numbers of children at the end of the system, the older young people and adults in terms of in receipt of education and health care plans, is also changing as well. So I'm confident that if we're not entirely there in 3 years' time, we'll be very close to being there. But that's going back to the previous councillor's question about schools stepping up in relation to educating children in mainstream settings. And Phil's point about that added complexity at Park means that children who have moderate learning difficulties, whose parents wish for them to go to mainstream schools, who might ordinarily have gone to Park, may then choose to go to a mainstream school. So we are confident that it will only be a short-term solution, but I could easily come back to you, Councillor, in a year's time and say that the demographic has changed significantly, or a provider out of the area is closed. So I wouldn't want to promise, but we are fairly confident that that would be the case.
Thank you very much for that, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Paul, can you provide more detail around the continued use of the Oracle building by community groups in the evenings and at weekends, please?
Yes, absolutely. So at the moment, we're looking into who uses that building and when they use it. And obviously, our intention would be to maintain those community lettings. However, once you've got children occupying a building, obviously the nature of the relationship between community groups and school will change, because at the moment that building is vacant. So our intention absolutely is to use that, because one of the visions for education in Blackpool is to have co-location of services and community groups wrapping around children and families. So therefore it's in our interest, isn't it, to have people using that facility. So at the moment it's sort of an unknown to us, because we don't know the entirety of the lettings, but yes, that is our intention.
Sorry, my last question. What's the financial budget for the modifications, and are they realistic for the amount of work required?
Thank you. So Phil has arranged those modification works with the builders. So Phil, could you explain to Councillor Burgess the cost, please, and the extent of the modifications?
Yes, so there's a budget of 85,000 that's been agreed for modifications to the building. For councillors who've been into the Oracle building, if you go up to the first floor, off to the left-hand side, there is a room there that's got a massive hole in the centre for a light that goes into the canteen underneath. So we're actually planning on filling that hole because we don't want young people to throw things over, I'm going to say. Because you know, it poses a risk to them, so we're filling that in. And then also within the same room there's two sections that are like mezzanine floors overlooking the canteen downstairs, so we're also filling those in. And the stairs are quite steep, and we're actually putting doors across the stairs because we don't want young people to be able to access different floors without being appropriately supervised. So there's a number of modifications, and the other one is as Paul said before, the fence line. We've actually got a fire exit that exits onto St Anne's Road, which is the main road where Palatine Library is, and we can't have young people with special educational needs exiting onto the main footway, particularly as that's a main road, St Anne's Road. So we're going to move the fence line and fence in the fire exit so that young people will exit the fire exit, if you like, into what will be the playground area instead. So the modifications aren't much, but there's a budget of 85,000. We've had some quotes for that, and I think there's a planning meeting next week to actually sign off and get the work started.
Thank you. So in your opinion, that 85,000 is realistic for the amount of work required? Yeah, okay, thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. 9.1, it says that the Blackpool Council has a statutory duty to provide special school places. How many places do we have to provide as a council? And if we don't provide that statutory duty, what will happen?
So, Councillor, we have a statutory duty to provide as many special school places as required by the children who live in Blackpool at that point in time. So whether in a mainstream school or in a specialist provision, that's our responsibility through the high needs block funding, which is the part of the funding which comes annually to the council to give to schools and then to spend upon those special school places and special school provision, amongst other things. So we can do that in Blackpool or outside of Blackpool, depending upon where the provision is available. So if, for example, the numbers of children were to rise significantly over the next year, it would be our responsibility to provide those places somewhere even if we had to commission them externally. And obviously external commissioning is very expensive for us, so we'd rather do it internally. We are due a SEND area inspection, which is by Ofsted and the CQC. And actually, that is part of the inspection framework about the suitability provision and the extent of provision. So if we don't provide enough places, one thing is that we obviously could be at risk of an adverse judgment in relation to our provision for children and families with SEND in Blackpool. And equally, we wouldn't want to be in that position because every child, as we said, deserves a high quality school place. So therefore, yes, as the commissioners essentially of SEND in the locality, that is our responsibility in partnership with schools, though, going back to Councillor's original point about the schools within the system also need to step up to the mark. So it's a coordinated plan. So once again, it's going back as opposed to that, how long is a piece of string? But absolutely, we must categorically do that. That is an absolute for the council.
Thank you for that. Can I just ask one more question? They're saying that people are moving into the area because of the special schools being outstanding. Is there say somebody puts something down and they've lived in Blackpool all their lives and somebody that's just moved into them, will they get a place or will it be the people that have lived here for years? It's
a system which is based upon fairness, and it's based upon point of application generally in most school settings. So in a mainstream school, if there is a place available and you apply to it, then the chances are that your child will get that place if nobody else applied for it at that time. With special school placements, it's all about the education, health and care plan and the most suitable place for that child to go to. So it's not about who's lived in Blackpool for longest or where you live in Blackpool. It's about the needs of that child. So therefore, there is a robust process around making sure that the right places are allocated. But as Phil has said, some of these schools are full. Therefore, it's not necessarily always available for every child to get the place that they want at the school that they want to go to. So yeah, it is a fair and equitable process which is based around the education, health and care plans and the work of that team about identifying the most appropriate school for the right child at the right time.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? I think to round up, what I'd like to put forward as a resolution is that we'd like to reiterate our request to receive full detailed plans for the provisions of the Oracle once available, because they're not available now, but certainly we would like to receive these before sorry, just going back here. We'd like to receive them. Lost my place completely. Yeah, if you could come back and present it to the committee before it's finalised. So I don't know when would be the most appropriate time. Who could give us a steer on when you could come back to report to the committee?
Thank you, Chair. So I think the most appropriate time would be the closest meeting to Christmas, only because the DFE have got a process that we need to go through in relation to the use of that building, and it can take quite a reasonable length of time to get to that place. So I'm not sure, Elaine, is there a meeting in very early on in the new year of 2022?
From memory, I think it's later on in January, but I will double check and I'll consult with yourself as to the most appropriate meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just having difficulty unmuting myself there. Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Philip, for your contribution there. That was very thorough, and I'm sure we've all learned a lot from that. Really very helpful.
Thank you.
Moving on to the Blackpool Better Start scrutiny review. This is the I'm asking the committee to recommend approval of the final report of the scrutiny review of Blackpool Better Start with a view to approving it for consideration by the executive. it does seem like a good, strong piece of work looking at the recommendations. So I'd go out to councillors if there's any points you would like to make on this before we put that across to Elaine. Councillor Mitchell Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it does look a really good report. I was really quite impressed, and thanks to all those who took part. I was particularly impressed by 4.3.9 and the conversation that was had with the grants official, and it was said that outcome data would not be available until shortly towards the end of the 10-year period. I'm just a bit mystified about that. Vast amounts of government money have been given out, probably quite rightly. When the obvious question was asked of the grants manager, he said he wasn't, or she wasn't particularly concerned that the outcome data hadn't been produced. And, it just seems obvious. You're halfway through the project and there are some specific measurable outcomes, and we haven't got those yet. That's something I would commend the report writers for putting in, and I think it should be flagged up, particularly to the executive, and they should look at this. It just has to be outcome data.
So, Philip, would you like to answer that?
Not me.
Chair, I think Councillor Mitchell just saying we'll flag that.
Okay, we're just flagging that
when it
up.
goes to exec.
Okay. Any other points that you'd like to bring forward, Councillor Callow?
Yes, thank you. I did think it was an excellent report, and a lot of hard work has gone into this. But what worried me was Talbot Ward, what had come out with their very low figures, and the fact that the response from Talbot Ward for most things was very, very poor. I do hope that we can follow this through, because it does worry me that we perhaps got vulnerable children and families there, and for some reason or another they're not very inclusive. I don't know whether it's because there's a lot of transients there, I've no idea, but I did think compared to some of the other wards, their figures were actually quite appalling, and really, if we could look at that, I would be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callow. Any other points to be made? No. Well, I feel there's 5 really strong recommendations there, and councillors would, as I've said, I recommend approval of the review to be sent to for consideration by the executive. Is that agreed? All agreed? Thank you. So now to move on to the committee work plan. Just for the purpose of the meeting, it's just to review and approve the content. Councillors, Councillor Critchley's, yep, Councillor Wing, all agreed. Brilliant, thank you. On to the date of the next meeting. So I'd just like to note the date and time of the next meeting as the 7th of October 2021, commencing at 6 p.m. And now I can safely conclude the meeting and thank everybody for your contribution. Councillor Stansfield.
Just a quick one, will that meeting be in the town hall, or do we hope to be in the town hall, or are we still going to try and carry it out virtually?
I'll hand over to Elaine for that.
That will have to be confirmed over the summer recess.
Yeah, okay. But if it all goes well, it will be a physical meeting in the town hall.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody, and good evening and good night.
Thanks, Chair. Great job.
Thank you.